Greetings, NCOPE residents, mentors, and directors. I'd like to show you an exciting new feature available for residents using the NCOPE Tracker platform. When you log into NCOPE Tracker, you'll be greeted by a new screen. This is called the Resident Dashboard, and is designed to provide you with basic information imperative to the overall program. So it'll say welcome and insert the resident's name, the current residency program type, track, residency site, whether the individual is active or inactive within the NCOPE Tracker system, their residency start date, as well as their end date, their currently assigned mentor, and their mentor's most recent login to the system. And this is pretty good considering that we're actually doing this demonstration on the 26th of March. So they've been in recently. At minimum, you'd expect to have your mentor check in every couple of weeks to run a report and see what's going on in terms of the case logs and entries and information. We also have some clinical data entry, and this clinical data entry relates to the resident case logs. And we can see right now, there's 38 total encounters that have been entered for Rachel's residency between these two dates. And in total, there were 20 unique days amongst those 38 encounters. So we know that if we actually divide 38 by 20, you get 1.9 average encounters per day. You also get to see the number of encounters missing data. This little number here reflects instances where the resident might have forgotten to enter all the information under Create or Edit Dataset. Or it might relate to an EMR system exporting data that NCOPE Tracker just can't recognize. Keep in mind, there's only certain values that NCOPE Tracker can know. It'll also identify the most recent case entry and appointment date. Remember, you should never go more than 2 weeks after the patient visit uploading data. So given that today is March 26th, and the most recent case entered was the 23rd, it looks like Rachel's keeping up with her residency records. Before we get too deep into how to tweak your dashboard findings, let's identify how we actually have a scenario where there's missing data that can occur, these 31 records that are of issue. Well, let's create a new encounter that needs some work. Create or edit data set. We're going to go to an appointment date, and let's imagine that we saw the patient yesterday. And let's work through a cranial case. Let's say that we have a patient who's 3 months old. So if we had to pick a whole number, that would be 0 years old. And it was a male patient for an orthotic case. And it was a cranial intervention. Don't worry about sides right now. But it was a cranial remolding orthosis. And that individual came in for their scanning. And you know what? My boss is calling me. Hang on, I gotta go. I'm just gonna save what I got here. So once I hit my save button, the data's been actually put into the system appropriately. So if we return back to our NCOPE Tracker dashboard, we'll be able to see that we have additional encounters with missing data. Ooh, now I'm looking at 32 encounters that are missing data. How do we fix that? Well, let's go ahead and click the little number 32 here. It's going to take us to Create or Edit Dataset. And what we can do is at the very top of the screen, you'll always see the most recent appointment entry. And remember that case on the 25th for our 3-month-old, 0 years of age that I just entered? That's one of the cases that's missing some data. And I know that there's missing data because it says number of records meeting the search or filter criteria. And what's that filter? Missing data. I'm going to click my pencil here. Edit. And now we can go ahead and enter the data that actually is missing. So side, you still don't have to worry about it. You don't have a left or a right cranium, fortunately. Device type, that's okay. Appointment type, scanning. Yep, that's good. That's one of the ones in the list. Ooh, I forgot to put in my ICD-10 code, and I also forgot my engagement level. On that note, I don't have to worry about these two values if something wasn't an outcome measures performed and goals documented. These two fields at the bottom, well, those are the optional data points. They're good to have, and some of the EMR platforms even include it. But at the end of the day, we recognize not every visit is going to have an outcome measure and a goal administered. So let's fix those missing entries. We're going to go ahead and type in our code, and luckily I happen to know it off the top of my head. It's Q67.3, plagiocephaly. And engagement, well, luckily I'm pretty far along in my residency, so I was independent, doing it myself. On that note, we didn't do any outcome measures. We did that at the initial eval before we got the insurance to confirm they were paying, and we didn't document any goals because we didn't deliver anything yet. I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and hit our update button. And what we can do now is go ahead and go back to our resident dashboard. And we can see, cool, looks like, well, I'm only missing 31 instead of 32. So we're moving along. Things are going quite well. For those residents fortunate enough to be able to upload their clinical data using an EMR, this screen's often one of relief. You can see data set is clean. And now we have the opportunity to upload our data into NCOPE Tracker. Let's go ahead and do that. And once that completes, well, that's great news because that means that our data is in the system. On that note, we can go back to our resident dashboard to double check that the EMR is outputting data that NCOPE Tracker can actually understand. Let's go ahead and click on the NCOPE Tracker logo to return to our dashboard. And it'll take a few moments to load up. But once it does load, we can see our total number of encounters that are available, number of encounters, missing data. If we click on that number 32, it'll give us the opportunity to address these shortcomings. So first of all, it'll identify there's 166 total records for our resident, but there's 39 that meet our search criteria, records missing data. And if we scroll down and take a look, at first glance, this actually looks pretty good. We can see that all of our columns are full so far. We have a device type, we have a primary diagnosis type, appointment type, and the 2 columns for data that's not required, outcome measures and goals, well, that's okay. You don't have to fill them out. So what's the problem here? The issue is the appointment type. You'll remember that NCOPE Tracker can only recognize a handful of appointment types. And below-knee prosthesis, well, that's not one of the appointment types that NCOPE Tracker can recognize. But we can fix that, even in data that we uploaded. What we're going to do is click the small pencil just here below Edit. And when we do that, we can scroll down to our appointment type. And you'll see below-knee prosthesis is listed. And when we click on it, our menu will open up. And you'll see the options that NCOPE Tracker normally presents for manual data entry, as well as below-knee prosthesis, because that's what we uploaded. That's what our EMR thought it was. But as you likely recognize, was this a below-knee initial evaluation, or a consultation, or a casting, or a diagnostic fitting? And for the purposes of this presentation, let's say it was a diagnostic fitting. So that's starting to look a little bit better. But on that note, you'll notice we're missing a couple other fields. Device type, upper and lower. Well, we know it's a transfem visit, so it's got to be lower. And we know that patient has a left transfemoral amputation, so that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is hit my update button. And you'll see that my pencil is now red. That means that an edit has successfully been saved. And what we can do is return to our dashboard, click on the NCOPE Tracker logo just like we did before, and now we can see that there are only 31 cases missing data. So 1 down, 31 to go. You can complete that process over again. And keep in mind, you don't have to return to the dashboard each and every time to make sure that you've actually updated it. I'd recommend tweaking all of your records and then coming back to the dashboard to view these missing cases that require your attention.